Okay, now I know I'm about 12 hours late. I'm recording this one. So by the time you see it, it's probably going to be about 24 hours old news. Excuse her Lorax here. Katie Phang. Trump DOJ blocks New Mexico Epstein ranch investigation. What do you think it's not happening here? We've got heaps of pedos over here to be dealt with. But you're worried about Pauline's going to fix it. Pauline's Trump's mate. Might as well call her his running mate of the West.
So, no shocker here for any of us that have been following what is happening with the Trump Department of Justice and the Epstein files. And trust me, I would know firsthand. But the Trump DOJ continues to give the stiff arm to people that want access to the unredacted Epstein files. And let me be clear, this one is not even from private citizen / independent journalist Katie Phang. This is actually from what you would think would be a quote-unquote brother, colleague, whatever you want to label the New Mexico Department of Justice. I mean, they're the state equivalent of the same thing that Todd Blanche is, right? Attorney General U.S., Attorney General New Mexico. And it is stunning and yet altogether kind of predictable that this DOJ continues to refuse to provide access to the only state attorney general who is conducting the only criminal investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others. So let's get into the letter that the New Mexico Department of Justice's Attorney General, Raul Torres, had to send to Todd Blanche. It was released by AG Torres' office, and it makes it explicitly clear that there have been repeated requests by New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche to obtain and to receive cooperation from the Trump DOJ. And in some instances, the DOJ hasn't even bothered to respond. Now, at the outset, there is a little bit of confusion that is being created by the New Mexico Department of Justice. And for those of you that were wondering, including me, because I was like, other offices are just attorney general's offices. I was like, what is going on here? Well, I made sure that I found out. So just to let you know, in January of 2024, Attorney General Raul Torres changed the name of the New Mexico Attorney General's office to the New Mexico DOJ. Why? Because the state statute in New Mexico created a, quote, Department of Justice that was headed up by the Attorney General. So, just in case, if you might have thought that the New Mexico DOJ is maybe the state arm of the U.S. Department of Justice, it's not. The New Mexico DOJ is pretty much the same as the New Mexico Attorney General's office. All right, so when I refer to that, that's what I mean. But you would still think there'd be some professional cooperation here. All right, so Raul Torres makes it clear in his letter to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and Associate Deputy Attorney General Diego Pestana the following: that the New Mexico Department of Justice has asked repeatedly to obtain the unredacted Epstein files through, quote, cooperative means. And to date, more than 130 days later, they have been unsuccessful. And they set forth in this letter 6 attempts to be able to obtain cooperation and copies of the necessary files from the Trump DOJ. February 13th, 2026, by way of written correspondence to then Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. And this is the thing. Back on February 13th, 2026, Attorney General Torres only wanted one specific document, but he also asked for, quote, all related Zorro Ranch investigative materials. And for those of you that are just kind of getting dialed in now, Zorro Ranch was the 10,000 plus acre property that was owned by Jeffrey Epstein that was also one of the epicenters of horrific abuse of children. And that is located in New Mexico. It actually had its own private airstrip there as well. So,
please, let me join your fleet, Cap.
Save it. You can't even pass level 2.
Hold on. I just found a solar panel and passed level 67.
Total fluke. You're going to get completely wrecked.
Equip Mac. Boom, level 999.
I'm wiping the whole space clean.
Nope. Didn't get any of that. Didn't get the specific Epstein Files Transparency Act document or all related Zohar Ranch investigative materials from the DOJ. Fast forward a month later, March 13th, 2026. This was a formal letter, to then Attorney General Pam Bondi, Pam and Joe with the bad hair. Attorney General Torres identified 5 redacted Epstein Files Transparency Act documents, I feel you, brother, and requested access to complete unredacted versions of all pertinent records. Nothing from the Trump DOJ. A few weeks later, April 1st, 2026, there was a telephone call between Associate Deputy Attorney General Diego Pestana and the New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres. During this telephone call, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Trump DOJ, affirmed its commitment to cooperation and directed the New Mexico Department of Justice to submit a formal TUI letter through standard channels. Now, you may be asking yourself, what's a TUI letter? TUI is a Supreme Court case from a number of years ago, and it pretty much stands for the proposition that federal agencies and offices can dictate the terms by which certain materials are produced by way of a kind of a cooperative energy is the way that I would describe it. Now, here's the thing. These regulations they govern how employees in those specific offices or departments release information or they appear to testify and other conduct like that. Okay? So the DOJ inexplicably tells the New Mexico Attorney General, you got to submit a formal TUI demand or a TUI letter. Okay. A month later, May 3rd, 2026, that TUI letter is submitted to First Assistant U.S. Attorney Ryan Ellison and the FBI Special Agent in Charge, Justin Garris, who was located in Albuquerque. It again identified specific documents sought pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act and requested access to all relevant unredacted records. It requested a response from the DOJ by May 11th. Nothing. May 29th, 2026. Follow-up in writing to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and Associate Deputy AG Pestana, renewing their request after receiving no substantive response pursuant to the TUI letter. Nothing. June 4th and 5th, requests for an in-person meeting were made when Attorney General Raul Torres from Mexico went to Washington, D.C. for a conference. No response received whatsoever. I want to stop for a second. Putting aside the active cover-up and concealment that we know is happening in real time by this Trump DOJ when it comes to unredacted Epstein Files records and documents, don't you think just out of professional courtesy, you could either respond via email, respond in writing, pick up the damn phone, and actually communicate with a fellow law enforcement professional, I don't know, the Attorney General of the state of New Mexico? Is it really that fucking difficult to do? And yet, what does it tell you? Putting aside bad manners, putting aside you were raised in a fucking barn, it tells you that when it comes to something like the Epstein Files, this Trump DOJ doesn't want to touch it. It's too radioactive. They don't want to have anything to do with it because they don't want it on their legacy. And yet, look, by way of my lawsuit, by way of, this active criminal investigation by the Attorney General in New Mexico, people are moving forward and they're making the requisite demands of this Trump Department of Justice because the law has said that this information is to be made public and transparent. The letter goes on to say, despite verbal assurances of cooperation from the U.S. DOJ, access to the requested records has not been granted, no substantive response has been provided, and more than 130 days have now elapsed since the initial request by the New Mexico Department of Justice.
As the West falls over, as it's dragged down. Like it's cooked. It's cooked. What's Trump up to with all this? What are they actually up to? Well, if you think about the United States of Israel, the Eastern European Ashkenazis occupying Jerusalem in the United Nations created nation state of Israel, as long as they stay in war, they can't be apprehended. They get to keep their jobs. During war times, you get to keep your jobs. What's going on with America at the minute? Oh, we're going to pull out of Iran on these peace talks. Yeah, but they keep fucking up the peace talks. Is Israel owning Trump, or is at the end of the day, are they doing Trump a favour by Trump negotiates peace talks, Netanyahu and Herzog fuck it all up time after time after time. Now Trump's talking about getting back into it with Ukraine and Russia and assisting Ukraine. Hang on. I thought he was against Ukraine. Like Zelensky. I thought he was like, sit down, boy. He's standing over Zelensky. Now he's going to jump in the ring and throw a whole bunch of shit at Russia, apparently, so that they can penetrate deep into Russia. Which is it? They would rather go to World War than play some music. If that's not a sign of guilt, I don't know what is. There's no law. Like I said, do you think it's any different here? Do you think it's honestly? You're kidding yourself. You're living with your head under a rock and choosing to let snails crawl in your ears while you sing la la la. It's a choice. Your ignorance is a choice. And you're extremely ignorant, all of you. Not all of you. There's probably about 4 that might not be. Maybe. Let you all find out that everyone that you still had faith in, they're all Epstein class. If your politician isn't fighting to have the Epstein files released in full unredacted form, then they're protecting it. They're either on our side or on their side. That's kind of where we're at now, isn't it?
The New Mexico DOJ views this length of time as an unreasonable delay under any rule of reason. Now, the backstory is the part that I'm ultimately truly fascinated with, because I, like you, ask myself all the time, if Epstein owned Zorro Ranch, and from the mid-2000s we know that Epstein, at least publicly, was cutting deals and being prosecuted by various state and federal agencies. What in the hell was going on in New Mexico? What kind of investigation was going on? Because it wasn't the first time recently that allegations of abuse and crime and horrible things have been alleged to have occurred at Zorro Ranch. Well, in 2019, and to refresh your recollection, that is the year, remember in July, when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and indicted by the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office, under 1 count of sex trafficking of minors and 1 count of conspiracy to commit trafficking of minors. And that was in July of 2019. So,
try the tortilla and not chips from Old El Paso. Strong chips make better nachos.
You, just you, building your app on base 44.
in 2019, the New Mexico Department of Justice, not headed up then by Raul Torres, but it opened an investigation into criminal conduct at Zorro Ranch. It gathered witness accounts. It generated investigative reports and engaged in regular coordination with federal prosecutors. Then, the U.S. Attorney's Office at the Southern District of New York asked that any investigation by the New Mexico DOJ stop. Why? Well, the excuse given by the SDNY was they were going to, quote, consolidate New Mexico's investigative materials into its federal prosecution of Epstein's co-conspirators, and in good faith, the New Mexico Department of Justice complied. This is according to the letter from Raul Torres. So then on September 17th, 2019, then Chief Deputy Attorney General Clara Moran in New Mexico transmit to whom? To Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey. Maureen Comey gets the entirety of the New Mexico Department of Justice's investigative file, including police reports, recorded witness interviews, and materials related to Epstein's use of New Mexico's public lands. And there was a specific request that the United States Department of Justice notify New Mexico should the federal investigation reveal additional survivors of crimes occurring in New Mexico. That notification never arrived, never happened. And then a month later, October 15, 2019, the New Mexico Department of Justice reached out again to the Southern District of New York, requesting asset seizure of Zorro Ranch, basically saying, seize Zorro Ranch. This is in October of 2019. Why? Because you can, through ways of forfeiture, you can seize stuff, property that is a fruit of the crimes, right? Money, bank accounts, property, real property, personal property, nothing. On July 2nd, 2020, following the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell, the New Mexico Department of Justice again offered assistance, nothing. July 8th, 2020, renewed its request for federal forfeiture action against Epstein's New Mexico properties, nothing. According to this letter from Raul Torres, each outreach was met with acknowledgement and nothing more. And then here's the real shit kicker. Quote, the US DOJ now holds in its possession the very records that would allow the New Mexico DOJ to resume what federal intervention interrupted. End quote. Damn. That's all I can say. Damn. So as we age, sometimes our skin just doesn't keep up with our needs. And we try different things, maybe a fad.
What about that up there? Well, I think you get the picture, yeah? See, it's when things go quiet. Here, all this has gone quiet. You don't hear about it anymore. It's not in our news. It's not in our papers. It was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. Now it's like, yesterday's news. No. Why are you just letting it go? Well, some people say it's a hoax. Okay, if it's a hoax, prove it's a hoax. Those who hide nothing have nothing to hide. Those who have nothing to hide nothing. Okay, Woodrow Commission. It was a nothing burger, according to Malcolm Roberts' office, who's Pauline Hanson's running, mate. Word to my ear on the phone. Not hearsay. From the horse's mouth. Okay, prove it. We want the proof. There's the proof. Prove it. It shouldn't be that hard to prove that it's bullshit. If it's bullshit. If it's not bullshit, it's going to be kind of difficult, isn't it? So therefore, needs to be investigated. John Howard needs to be investigated. It's a crime. He's covered up a crime as Prime Minister. He's used his position as Prime Minister to cover up crimes of 28 pedophiles. Hello? I can't think of a much bigger crime. Using your position as Prime Minister to cover up the crimes of 28 pedophiles. 28 pedophiles? Geez, that could be in the hundreds. Until that's sorted out, everything else is just bunk. It's just fucking, it's not even worth fucking worrying about. If we don't sort all that shit out, we deserve to get destroyed by fucking China.